or I feel like maybe if I feel like I'm proud of myself, like if I actually feel proud of myself, it'll go against some script that I've always had written or it's almost like it wouldn't, if I wrote on the wall of myself, I'm proud of you, it wouldn't even fucking show up on the wall.
What emotion would you feel if you saw that?
Like what emotion would I feel if I saw what?
I'm proud of myself. Would you go bullshit? Would you be pissed off by it? Would you be annoyed? Would you just
No, I think I'd feel ashamed of myself for even thinking it.
That's interesting. And it produced an emotion in you just now, even when you just thought about it. I saw that flash in your eyes. It's just a little bit of water, a little bit of fluid.
Oh, yeah, dude. Fuck, we cry on here every week. Sorry, dude.
That's beautiful.
Comedian Theo Vaughn sits down with motivational speaker and author Tony Robbins. This was a podcast for the ages, and today we're going to be going through the highlights and hidden gems in this podcast. I'm your host, David Aguilar. Let's go ahead and jump on in.
What are some things that you do or that really make you feel like that didn't feel like snake oil kind of,
Yeah, well, some things I do I've been doing for like 20 years. Like, I start every day in the cold plunge. Yeah. Now it's very popular, ice bath and so forth. But there's never a day I look forward to it, Theo. I don't wake up and go, I can't wait to freeze my ass off. But to me, it's a discipline. It's like training my mind. Besides the physical benefit, it doesn't feel good when you go in, but you feel amazing coming out. As your entire body gets flooded, right? Your blood moves. But going in, it's like, I don't negotiate with myself. I don't go, let me see if I'm ready. It's like, I've trained my brain. I say, go, we go. At my home in Sun Valley, I walk through the snow and get in the river. Yeah. That's like, 41 degrees. And I mean, it's intense, but when you train your brain, that when I say go, no negotiation, then that shows up in every other part of your life. So I do that. I work out every day, obviously. I do a 10-minute process. It's not really a meditation because I'm not good at not thinking, and I don't know many people are that have no thoughts. I do a way to kind of condition my nervous system and my mind. It's really simple. I do these 3 pieces.
What Tony Robbins is talking about here is what we discussed in the last episode with David Goggins' interview with Andrew Huberman, which was the all stick, no carrot, right? You train your mind not to just do what you want it to do, but to do the very thing that you don't want to do. Tony here is talking about doing the ice plunge. I haven't done it yet, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. But I'm with him in going to the gym and doing so many other things like meditating or finding times to meditate. Sometimes it gets really difficult to find times for yourself because you're so busy doing things for other people, for your business, or for the company you're working for your spouse, or for your friends, or whoever. And so we get so rushed into this world by the time we wake up that we don't have any time to take for ourselves. And so even in my morning regimen now, I try to put in a 10 to 15 minute meditation where I'm like still, and I have to tell myself, like, you need this time for you. Like, this is for you to tell yourself you are also important. Don't look at, and don't pay attention to anything else but yourself. And so it's a 15 meditation where, I want to practice what Tony's about to talk about because it's not something I do. I just try to do something that is like relieving stress and clearing my mind and getting myself ready for the day. But I love what Tony gives as an advice and how to use these 10 minutes. So let's go ahead and listen to this.
Do a way to kind of condition my nervous system and my mind. It's really simple. I do these 3 pieces, 3 minutes each. It's only 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So if I said 20 minutes, people say I don't have time. But if you don't have 10 minutes for your life, you don't have a life, right? Mm-hmm. So I just do 3 minutes of
Again, if you don't have 10 minutes for your life, you don't have a life. If you're someone like me who is used to just running and gunning, work is going on, family life's going on, all these things are going on where you don't have time for yourself, you need to step away and say, hey, what's going on where I don't even have time? 10 minutes for me. So like they said that.
That mess people up in their relationship or their business, it's usually anger or fear, some derivative of those 2. So the antidote to those is gratitude. You can't be angry and grateful simultaneously. Right. You can't be fearful and grateful simultaneously. So I train my nervous system by starting every morning. I do this process to change my body. It's a breathing process. And then I think of one at a time, a minute each. I see and feel something in my life that I'm really grateful for. Wow. I do little things and big things. So you don't have to have a giant thing to be grateful. Yeah. And it's real. It's not like I'm seeing it over there. It's like I'm experiencing it. So it changes your biochemistry.
So when you say experience it, not to interrupt you. But no, I just want, because I'll forget what the question is. That's the only reason. It's like a desperation need. So in that moment, like, because I know what you're talking about, I'll make a gratitude list, right? But sometimes it's like I'm just writing the things down and there's no real connection inside of it.
That won't do much.
And I know it won't do it. It's like, I know this ain't going to help. At least I'm doing the practice. But I know it's not going to have like I can tell even right now it's not going to help me that much.
Yeah.
So what are you saying that
I'm saying I close my eyes and sometimes if I said, think of a time when you rode a roller coaster and you remember it over there, like see it over there, that's called disassociated. But if I get you to imagine being in the front seat, and you might tell me, oh, it's pretty interesting. But if I get you to go back to actually the moment when you're coming over the edge, and then, you see even right now, you see, So that's what I do with the gratitude. I get in my body as if I was then, see it and feel it and experience it, and that creates a biochemical change in your body as opposed to a thought. A thought's not enough, right?
Yeah.
And you do 3 of those, and then I have 3 minutes of kind of a cleansing of my body that I do mentally and a kind of a prayer for others. And then I do 3 minutes of what I call, 3 to thrive. I think of 3 things I want to make happen, outcomes, results. And I don't sit there and beg for them or pray for them. I see them as done. I feel them. I celebrate them as done. Because when your subconscious mind believes it's done, it makes it happen. So it's kind of programming it. The whole thing only takes 10 minutes.
This is something that I started learning a few years ago, which is memory association. So what Tony's talking about there, coming off of Theo's question, is how do I make things stick, right? When and I don't know if you guys try this, but there are times when you try to be grateful for things. You get think about like, oh yeah, I'm grateful for my car, or for my computer, for my cameras, and for my wife, and for my stuff. But there's no there's nothing coming from the heart. That's what Theo was talking about. And what Tony's talking about is you need to make these associations in your brain that connect to your heart, so that when you draw back and grab those, there's going to be something that actually fuels you and lights you up. And so one thing that I try to do is again, we talked about this on the other episode, was there needs to be moments in your life where you're hyper aware of things, right? Like that's something I try to do. If there's a moment in the day where I'm like with my wife or my son, and I get to step back and I tell myself, hey, you weren't here a few years ago. These are things that you prayed for in the past. Like you're living in the middle of something that is what you've always wanted. Appreciate it and don't take it for granted, right? What I tend to do is I would try to feel as much as I can, whether it's joy, happiness, love, whatever. I try to have those emotions there, and I try to remember that memory and how I felt in that memory. And so I try to neurologically take a picture of that, to where when there's times, again, when I'm in the gym or when I'm doing something where I feel discouraged, I feel sad, or whatever it is, we all struggle with our emotions. I then go back to certain memories like that, and I feel what I was doing in that moment, and I feel the way that I felt in that moment, for whether it was my wife or my son, or whether it was a game, or maybe I was being a part of this. I like to do this when I travel, if I'm experiencing being on top of a mountain for the first time, like when I was in Colorado. I remember that sensation of being on the mountain and the snow on the ground and the breeze coming in and how cold it was, and seeing my breath in the air. And so what I tend to do is, in the moments where I do feel high, I try to take snapshots of that so that I can use them later on. And I do the same thing when I'm heartbroken, when I'm sad, when I'm angry, when I'm dealing with certain things. I would take whatever pain and whatever hurt and whatever anger is going on in that moment, and I will use that for something else, whether it's creating art, whether it's working out, whether it's, doing a marathon. These are ways that you can be using these certain emotions and things that you go with throughout life. And I feel like that's one of our biggest struggles, is that we respond to things so many times when they happen, like anger and jealousy and all these kind of things, because we haven't learned how to train our emotions and use our emotions at the best times. That's my opinion. I feel like that's kind of what Tony was talking about, is you need to make these correlations with your mind and with your heart, so that you can end up actually feeling grateful for what's going on in your life.
But how do you I guess, and you just kind of answered, I guess, like how we change our perspective. So we change our attitude. That's really what you need to have a new experience.
Yeah, there's 3 decisions you're making every moment you're alive. Your audience could test this out. The first one is, what are you going to focus on? Now, when I say make these decisions, Theo, I don't mean you're making them all consciously, right? So whatever you focus on, that's what you feel. If you're supposed to meet your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whoever at 7:00, you get there at 7, they're not there. Some people are pissed off. Some people are worried. It's the same event. If it's 7:30 and they're not there, they've not called, they've not texted. Now what are you feeling? Some people go, I'm really pissed off. I'm really worried.
I'm really single.
Yeah, single. It's 8:30, I haven't showed up. I'm full. I didn't wait for the basket. But the point is, whether you're angry or whether you're worried had nothing to do with the event. It's the habits of your mind. Mm-hmm. The person who's worried thinks, well, maybe they're in a car accident. The person's pissed off. They did it again. So the first decision you make is what are you going to focus on? And most people have patterns of focus.
Yeah.
So there's three I'll give you, your audience can test out. Do you tend to focus more on what you have or what's missing?
What's missing?
Yeah. Do you tend to focus more on what you can control or what you can't control?
Probably what I can control but it's out of desperation because I feel like I have to control everything.
Well, that's not a bad thing. You can't control everything, right? It's an illusion, but you can influence so much. You can control everything in you.
Okay.
And then the third one, do you tend to focus more on the past, the present, or the future?
The past.
Yeah. So those three patterns, if you do all three of them, if you constantly look at what's missing, it's hard to ever stay fulfilled or happy.
Yeah.
So you have to always do something to try to make yourself happy because you're always noticing what's missing. That's just where your focus goes. There's always something missing. There's always something that's not missing. There's always something beautiful. You focus on what you have, you're going to be more fulfilled. Second one, if you focus on what you can control what you do, it's why you have your own business. It's why who you are. A lot of people focus on what they can't control. It's overwhelming. They're stressed out. They think of all those things. So if you constantly focus on what's missing, you can't control, and the past, which you can't change, what that makes you is either angry or sad or frustrated or depressed. You see people all the time that come to me, in groups. I just did this thing for Stanford where 2 years ago, and everybody's in COVID, they came to me because two of their professors came to my seminar for 5 days. Both were, clinically depressed. They came back with no depression symptoms. They said, how do you do this? I mean, do you have any data? I said, well, I got millions of people that did my programs, They want to know scientific data. I said, well, you want to do a test? They said, sure. I said, what do you want to test on? And they said, depression. And I said, well, I already know what triggers that for anybody. You can give them drugs all day long. All Prozac and Zoloft does is numb things. But
I just got off of mine.
Oh, really? Good for you.
Yeah, I'm like 17 days off right now. So,
awesome.
Well, let's see how it goes.
But let's see how it goes.
I appreciate it.
But your two patterns that you just did, constantly focus what's missing and the past, will make it a little harder for you to be happy on a long-term basis.
Right.
Crack yourself up so in the moments you change your state. But if you want a long-term change, all you'd have to do is change the habit. It's just a habit of focusing on what you do have.
I remember when I first began to practice these patterns of focus. And that was something that was, again, I love how vulnerable Theo is in this podcast because that also allows you to kind of have these conversations with yourself in your mind when you're listening to this, because you could say, okay, what are the things that I'm focusing on and what is my pattern of focus? And I early on, and I still struggle with a lot today, is I felt like I could not achieve the things that I wanted to do. And so every time I felt like I wanted to reach a new goal or do a new thing, I would always talk myself out of it because I always said, you're not smart enough. Nobody wants to, hear you. Nobody wants this and that. So no matter what I was trying to go for in life, I was always my worst critic and my worst enemy. And so before the thing even happened, I was already talking myself out of it. And that's because I had these patterns of focus. I was focusing on the wrong things, pay attention to the wrong things rather than to the right things, right? Again, this is where that internal dialogue also comes in. What voices are you listening to? Are you listening to the voices that say you can't do it and you're to this and you're to that? Or are you listening to the voices that say that you can do it and keep pushing and keep going? And so when I started adjusting my patterns of focus, it really, very, very simple. When I wanted to move to Austin, I did everything that I could to move here. So whether it was selling things, saving up money, transferring jobs, all that kind of stuff, my focus, and this is where I started, when I started training it, was what is one goal you want to achieve right now? And I said, I want to get out of Brownsville and I want to move to Austin. I want to see what happens because I was about to be 30 and it's like, yo, what am I doing in my life, right? And so all I knew was I want to get to Austin and I want to pursue coffee roasting. And that was it. And so what I had to do was begin to train my brain to have these patterns of focus, focusing on the man that I wanted to become, focusing on the person that I wanted to become. So then when other parts of me, right, the part of me that was being angry and jealous and frustrated and was not a good person, anytime that person was trying to creep up, the other person would be more like, hey, that's not you. this is your goal, right? And you do that even if you're dieting, right? If you're dieting and you're saying, well, I want to eat this cake, I want to eat this ice cream, I want to have all this stuff, you need to have another part of you that says, yeah, I know you want that, but you also want this. What do you want more? What is your focus going to be on? What is your drive going to be on? And if you give up and you forsake those things, and you will become that person who you want to be, which makes that something that you're not just running away from, but that other thing is something that you're running towards. And so that is the biggest thing that it comes to when it comes to patterns of focus. It isn't just saying, I don't want to be this person or want to have that thing. It's also, I want this more than I want that.
September 2022, cover of Newsweek says meta-studies show the SSRIs don't work, but we keep selling them.
I would literally have to look at like history of like, it's almost like I would have to look at my own past for clues, right?
Yeah.
Like on how I felt. And so
because you're being altered, right? You're being altered and not.
Yeah, it was too hard to get like a real feeling out of myself. And so I was like, man, I got to have some feelings or I'm not going to be able to make some choices for myself.
That's for you. That's really awesome. I want you to know how a normal treatment is to put you on antidepressants and therapy or one or the other or both, right? So I asked the guys at Stanford, I said, you want to study it? Well, what are the meta-studies? You know, when you have multiple studies, they give you the averages. And they said, well, the meta-studies show that 60% of the people who take antidepressants, and now they know SSRIs don't even work. There was a cover of Newsweek a year ago in September. Did you not know this?
He emailed me. I've been thinking over 17 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Go look at September 2022 cover of Newsweek says meta-studies show the SSRIs don't work, but we keep selling them. Right?
Well, what about this?
But watch this. Here's the stat. 60% don't improve at all. 40% of the people improve. The average improvement, according to meta-studies, is 50%. So they're half as depressed as they were. Now, some people get well, but it's a very small percentage. So I said, you could almost do that with a placebo. And the guy laughed and said, yeah. I said, well, what's the best study you've ever done? The most effective study in science. They said there was a study done at Johns Hopkins about 5 years ago. I mean,
and what did
this is from Stanford.
Who's Johns Hopkins?
Johns Hopkins Hospital has some of the best researchers and so forth.
Oh, good.
And so they did this study, and here's what they did. Mm-hmm. They give people psilocybin for a month, magic mushrooms, and cognitive therapy. I said, well, you ought to get some change out of that. He goes, yeah. It was the greatest change they've ever seen in the history of psychiatry. 6 weeks after treatment, 54% of the people had no symptoms of depression.
Dude, I have 4 stems and a Diet Coke. I'll talk to my sister for an hour, you know? So I fully support that, sir.
But unfortunately,
so you're saying there's new methods.
There's new methods, but I said, okay, that's amazing. But I said, I think we'll do better, but let's see. So they did a group. They modeled that same drug study, did the same thing with me with no drugs. I put people in this 6-day seminar I have called Date with Destiny, and they picked all the people and put them all.
That's your annual seminar, right?
Yeah, it's the one that once a year.
Yeah.
And what was amazing was the results were so profound that they didn't want to get canceled, so they sent the data blind out to 3 other organizations before they published it, and they published in the Journal of Psychiatry last year. Results, 6 weeks later with no drugs, just 6 days of rewiring your brain, 100% of the people, no depression whatsoever. Even better, 17% of the people had suicidal ideation, no suicidal ideation. Here's the best part. 11 months later, they followed up. 72% reduction in negative emotions, still no depression, 52% improvement in positive emotions. So when you make a shift in the way you use your brain and it gets conditioned, and it does get conditioned, so they were studying how it works. So there's a biochemical change that actually happens in the body.
Perspective, that's the thing. It's like, you got to change, instead of just be like, I want to have this New Year's resolution, another rule for myself, I need to change the ruler.
That's
right.
You got it.
That's what I need to change. But a lot of people times we don't even see that we're the ruler.
Yeah. So as long as I can remember, late 20s, even into the early 30s, I always struggled with depression, of course, coming from a divorced family, and just, you look at my background, you look at the things that I've been into, it's no surprise that I struggled with depression and suicidal thoughts and all that kind of stuff. And I remember when I started going to church and became a Christian and all that, so many people would try to convince me into taking pills and medicine and all that kind of stuff, because I just struggled a lot with depression. And I was always convicted by not taking medicine for this kind of stuff. I don't know why, and I don't know where it came from. I just felt like it's something that I can overcome. It's something that can be defeated without the use of medicine. And man, hearing this part of the podcast where Tony kind of unpacks what Stanford did, like with that mushroom study that he talked about. 54% of the people came back with no depression, right? So you still have 46% of the people battling depression. But in the study that they did with him, in just rewiring the brain, and after 6 weeks going through this, where 100% of the people were no longer depressed, and the 17 people that had suicidal tendencies no longer had them anymore. That is why I'm such a proponent of working on yourself and doing things that are hard, doing things that are difficult, walking into the fire, walking into the battle, doing the things that you don't want to do because you know that they're good for you. At the end of the day, when you're battling things like this, what it does, it creates such a warrior in your subconscious and in your mind that allows you to fight off all the other voices and all the other things that are coming at you from the outside world. I am a strong believer that that's where so much of depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts and all these things that plague our society come from. It's all these outside noises, and we have no way of shielding our brain. We have no way of protecting our mind from what's going on. And so we just go with the flow. And for the longest time, I just went with the flow, and I thought to myself, like, I guess I'm just going to be a depressed person. I guess I'm just going to be doing these things to myself. And I guess I'm just going to continue to have these patterns of hurt. And that's who I'm just going to be, until I told myself, I don't want that anymore, right? Like, there's other people who have overcome these things. Why can't I be one of them? And so again, I had to find a model. I had to find a person. I had to find something to say, that is what I want to be, because I've never had that before. And so once I had that model, once I had that person, once I had that thing to say, okay, this is the goal. This is what we're achieving, right? Whether it was moving out of Brownsville into Austin, whether it was getting a raise, whether it was becoming an artist, whatever I decided to do, it was like, have that goal and then take the steps that person would take to get there. So, okay, maybe you're not an artist. Maybe you're not a musician. Maybe you're not a celebrity. Maybe you're not a creative or whatever you want to be in life. Fine. But if you were, what steps would you take? That's all you have to ask yourself, right? Like, if you were an artist, what would you do? Okay, you would buy canvas, you'd write paint, you'd probably listen to certain music, you get certain clothes on. Okay, well then do that. And then live out the life of what it looks like to be a creative and a painter and a musician or whatever you want to be. And then let that take you on the journey of becoming that thing. And so this is what Tony is talking about, is it starts in the mind. And then Theo does a great job of adding the cherry on top, right? It's, we don't know that we're the governors of our own mind. Like, we think that we are ruled by the outside world and by politicians and by governors and by presidents and by all these kind of things. We rule ourselves. Like, the person you have in your mind, the person who you are, you make your life's choices every day. No one governs you, you govern you, right? That's what we need to realize, is we have ability and we have power and we have all these things within ourselves. We just need to learn how to use it. Sometimes it takes being guided by people like Tony Robbins and David Goggins and all these other people who have put themselves in the fire and have developed this skill and are now saying, hey, let me teach you how to do the same thing. Or other times it's kind of like watching channels like mine that, hey, I'm on this journey too, and I'm developing this skill as well. And I may not be as good as these guys, but hey, I'm going to show you, and I'm going to take you down this journey so you can see how I do it.
You know, when people overreact to something, you've ever gotten pissed off over something little, the reason you overreact is it's not that moment, it's that it happened again. I did it again, right?
Yeah.
So I call that stacking. So when you stack problem on problem on problem, pretty soon your whole biochemistry, it's hard to get back. But you can also stack the good. That's why you do the morning priming. So when you stack a good thing on top of a good thing on top of a good thing, your whole biochemistry changes.
Oh, yeah.
Now you see the world through different eyes. It's not like you're guaranteed to succeed, but your probabilities of pulling it off and enjoying yourself are up about 1,000-fold.
Oh yeah. And like I go to like AA meetings, I go to recovery meetings, right? So and I notice if I go to a couple in a day, dude, by Friday I'm a fucking good guy. You know, I'm like hugging people. I'm like telling blind people I'm gonna heal them. I can't. But I'll do this for like 30 seconds on it. You know, it's like, You just feel like, but you're right. But it takes me, I have to stack them up. And it's like,
That's right.
And then it's usually a couple days later that I'm like, man, why do I feel so great? It's like, oh, because I did this work over the past 10 days, you know?
Yeah, and what you did there were actually, when you really do it strongly like that, it creates a biochemical change, and that creates a new habit in your nervous system.
Another great point, stacking. Stacking wins is something that I highly believe in, which is one of the reasons why I think waking up early in the morning is something that you should be doing, if you can, every single day. The reason I say that is this, right? My morning routine would look like waking up, so boom, win. Why? Because I woke up at 3:30, 4 in the morning before everybody else, so I'm already off to the races. For me, I count that as a win. 2, I'm getting myself ready to go to the gym, pre-workout, protein shake, all that kind of stuff. All of those are little wins. I'm doing the things that I know that I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm counting a win. By the time I get to the gym, I've already had about 4 or 5 wins, depending on what my morning looks like, right? So then I get to the gym, complete my workout, right? Especially if it's these kind of workouts where I'm pushing myself and doing something that is hard for me, I count those as wins. Right after that, 35 to 45 minutes of cardio, sometimes an hour, depending on how I'm feeling, but let's say 30 to 45 minutes of cardio, count that as a win. Get home, I've already stacked up about 10 wins before the morning even starts. That's why I'm such a proponent of waking up so early, because if you start your day that way, then when something happens, right, whether you get to work or you're dealing with somebody in traffic, or you're dealing with somebody at a coffee shop, or whatever it is, you have a certain situation going on, because you've already stacked up so many wins and have started the morning in such a good way, you're more prone to respond to these situations in a highly sophisticated, happier, better way than you would if you're in a rush. If you've had arguments, you've had losses, you feel like the morning is already going to be a bad one, and something happens, and what did he say? No, it happened again, and that's where you lose your temper, that's where you lose your focus, that's where you lose your momentum, and then you end up having a bad day, bad week, bad month, bad year, bad decade, and what's happening 15 years down the road, you're sad because of something that you could handle in just a single morning. That's where stacking becomes so important in your life.
So what notices that in your body? Like your chemistry in your body actually notices you're doing something different and wants to.
Here's what they found. They did my work with a top professor who was highly rated at Stanford. He did my work word for word, but he didn't do what I do in a vet, which is change your biochemistry, change the way you move, you breathe, your voice. All those things change you. He didn't do that. He just taught it. He got unbelievable results. He's a tremendous teacher and professor. Mine were 300% greater because of the biochemical change. So they followed me for 3 years. Everywhere, the $68,000 device that measures heart rate variability. They come during every break and take my saliva. They took my blood, do my blood pressure.
Herbert, huh?
It was crazy. But they did it on several events over 3 years. They found all these wild things.
And is this Stanford did it?
Yeah, Stanford did. Okay. And what they found was, and the same group of Stanford in partnership with a group that's worked with like Tom Brady and some of the greatest athletes. And they have this thing they call the championship biochemistry. And so if Tom Brady is down in the fourth quarter by 10 points in the Super Bowl, how does that guy come back and win? The reason is because there's a part of him that goes into this state. And I do it every time I get on stage, but my audience does it as well. And they measure it. What happens is testosterone explodes through my body. That gives you incredible drive and push. And I've got to keep this building going. Imagine, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 people. I got to reach the guy at the back for 12 straight hours. The level of intensity is amazing. Playfulness, fun, but it's still intensity. But normally that has a lot of stress with it. My cortisol, which is the stress hormone, drops through the floor, same as Tom. So what you get is total drive. It doesn't guarantee success, but total drive and not a lot of stress. So you're able to stay centered and go. So my audience thought, this is an amazing thing. So they measured me. They found that I jump 1,000 times in a day on stage. And I weigh 290 pounds. So every time I jump and come down, it's 4 times your body weight. So imagine 1,000 pounds of pressure 1,000 times in a day. So my bone density is, you look at it, I look like a gorilla underneath.
Oh, yeah, you're dense.
I've done it for like 40 years, right? Yeah. So on the other hand, they also saw that, if you're running with somebody and you can't talk any longer, you've gotten to a 4 of lactic acid. I'm at an 18 and still speaking. So Then they started testing my audiences, and they saw it looks like music. When I go into these states, the audience follows me, and they measured it. Then when COVID happened, I had all the people at home. And so we had people in 195 countries. So they went to people in 40 countries and measured them in real time as we're doing this. Now imagine that.
Just on Zoom, they're measuring them over.
Yeah, I built this. What happened was
not Zoom, but like a larger scale Zoom.
Yeah, 20-foot high LED screens, 0.67 highest resolution. I built a piece so I can bring people up. Eric Yon from Zoom, he built the system so instead of 1,000 people, I could do 25,000. I've done 1.5 million people in one seminar to give you an idea for 4 days. It's been wild. The purpose of life is not just to get your goals. Your goals or you're getting what you want doesn't make you happy. What makes you happy is who you become in pursuit of those goals. So the growth, the progress, even if you don't achieve it yet, but you start losing weight, or you start building muscle, or you start making your relationship better, or you start to build a business, the progress is what makes you feel alive, because we're all made to either grow or die. If your relationship's not growing, it's dying. If your business is not growing, it's dying. There's no in-between bullshit. That doesn't work. So, and when you grow, you have something to give. And what makes people fulfilled is growing and giving, sharing it with somebody, because there's only so much joy you can have by yourself. Drugs, alcohol, entertainment, sex with yourself, whatever. By yourself, there's a limit to what you can feel. That's why whenever something great happens, most of us want to tell someone, share with somebody we love, because when you share it, it magnifies it.
Again, this is one of these podcasts that you need to go listen to yourself, because there's so many gems in it that I just kind of had to jot down so many notes. But where he's talking about self-esteem, man, oh man, how much is that true? I know, again, in my life, I was running on low self-esteem. The way that I viewed myself, the way I thought about myself, the way I thought about so many things were really influenced by the way that I saw myself, right? If it was something in a relationship, the issue wasn't really the relationship. I just felt like I wasn't worthy enough to be loved by this person. So then I would self-sabotage the situation, not because of what they were doing, but because I had no self-esteem. I had no self-love. But there's a lot of people that I speak to on a weekly, monthly basis where I need to encourage like selfishness. And it sounds bad because you think to yourself, well, we're taught throughout our lives not to be selfish. But to build self-esteem, you need to be a little selfish. You need to do something for yourself to show yourself like, hey, we're still in this together, right? Like I say this all the time, your body, yourself is the only thing you will ever have for the rest of your life, right? Not even your spouses, not your stuff, not your education. There's a lot of things you're going to lose in your life, but your body, your mind, this right here, you will have this for the rest of your life. And so if you don't show yourself some self-care, if you don't spoil yourself a little bit, if you're not a little bit selfish at times, then other people may suffer because then you're going to be holding a grudge. And so one thing I had to learn while I was going through this process was do things for you. You also matter. And when you treat yourself like you matter, other people will treat you like you matter as well, because then you also will view those people the way you view yourself, as you also need love and you also need these things. And so it just becomes this beautiful harmony of just sharing with one another in community and friendships and relationships. So self-love goes a long way. Building a self-esteem is something that, to me, again, there's so many people I talk to where it's like helping them in that is difficult. But once you start stacking some wins, it gets pretty easy.
I'm fat because I'm big boned. No, you're fat because you have poor habits, right? That's how it works.
Yeah, some people, I remember this. People always like, he'll grow out of it. And I'm like, dude, he's 34. Like, my buddy's grandma was like, it's just baby fat. He'll grow out of it. It's like, we all have different, but it's like, he ain't fucking, Ronnie ain't growing.
The reason you'll grow out of it is you have to see what's causing you to have that gap. And it's one of only a couple things. Either you got fear, so you're not taking action, or you might have, for example, some limiting beliefs like it never works. I've tried everything. The good ones are gone. So you don't even begin. Or you might have some emotion gets in the way, or a bad habit, or maybe just missing the skill. Like no one's ever taught you how to make money or grow a business or have a great relationship. So you're learning on the job, and it's painful to learn on the job. So I've always said, find somebody who's extraordinary at something, or many people, figure out what they're doing and do that. It's called modeling. It's reinventing the wheel. Now you're going to add yourself to it.
Yeah.
But modeling gives you the pathway to power. And then once you know what you want, why you want it, you're honest about the gap, you come up with a quick plan, not a perfect one, you start taking action, and then you face your demons. You slay your dragons. What needs to change? Like, okay, I'm never gonna have a relationship if I'm numb all the time. So I gotta change this. It's hard, but I'm gonna do the hard thing.
Right.
And when you do the hard thing, you get momentum. And then what was hard becomes easy after a while. And that's really.
And you need to pause right there, because that's another big one that, again, I just struggled with all the time, especially early on, was this limiting belief that I couldn't do something. And I don't know where that came from, but I just always had that limiting belief of, one, I couldn't do something, or that I could never learn that skill. But then once I got into coffee, learned coffee roasting, then got into videography and photography, learned all these things, I began to realize, like, I'm actually a really good learner, but I'm a better practicer. So I may not be good at watching a video and then in watching that video, like getting all that information, saying, okay, I'm good, let me go do this thing. I'm more of like, okay, let me watch this video, understand it. Okay, let me watch this video while I'm doing this thing alongside the video. Now let me do that 5 times. Let me do that 10 times. Let me do it 20 times. Let me do this for 24 hours straight over and over and over again, because I need to get it right. That's what it looks like so much of the time. But then what ended up happening with me was then me realizing, okay, you can learn. It just takes you a little bit longer to learn, and maybe you got to invest a little bit more time to learn, but you can learn and you can develop these habits and you can do these things. And again, patterns of victory, stacking these accomplishments, building this momentum gets you into the person that you want to become.
I'll tell you one fun example though. 2 years ago, there's this guy that was 735 pounds. He never would have made it to a seminar. It's always free. He's been in bed. His brother died. He got addicted to painkillers.
Oh, yeah.
And then his body just blew up. And then they told him he had to be on an oxygen mask the rest of his life. He couldn't get on
like a CPAP machine, me?
Yeah, well, it wasn't CPAP. It's pure ongoing oxygen.
Oh,
right?
that's nice.
Yeah. And then secondly, he couldn't get out of bed to go to the bathroom. He had to be in bed. He was naked in bed for 5 years and 730 pounds. So he watches. And I brought him up on screen. I didn't know he was there. He raised his hand digitally, so I raised it up and started asking questions. So he got so inspired by this.
Yeah.
He took this little like clothes hanger bar and just started doing these little exercises. And over 90 days, I told him, I said, you get out of that bed and make it to the restroom. You get out of the restroom and drive a car again, which he hadn't done in 7 years. I haven't been in 7 years. And I said, I'll fly you to my Unleash the Power Within event for 4 days. You walk on fire with me and you'll really shift your life, right? He's lost 320 pounds. He 3 months later was out of the bed for the first time. He drove a car. He fell in love with this girl. He came to the event, walked on fire. Now he's like, we have a network of people, because once you come to this event, there's people all over the world you become friends with. And he's like the superstar of all these people because they can't believe the changes he's made. And it all happened because he never would have come to an event, but because he could do it from home in his bed. You could do that.
It could reach him.
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought that story was so good, because almost 1,000 pounds, right? 737 pounds, I think you said it was. Like, some of you watching this are not that big. A lot of you can make these changes. Don't wait to get to that size to start making these changes. Like, those are things that I always think about sometimes, where I get scared of, like, man, if I don't change this now, where am I going to be 5 years down the road? Right? If I don't stop this habit, if I don't stop this thing, what does the next 5, 10, 15 years look like? And do I want to be there? Is this one thing worth that trip? And when I realized the answer is no, I stopped doing it. So a lot of y'all, you're not at the 300, 400, 500, 700 pound life right now. You could still make a change, make that change.
What's something like, I notice like there's been times in my past where it's like, I think I didn't want to change because I wanted to keep having an excuse, right? Like I remember even with smoking, I remember it was like, part of me didn't want to stop. There was a part of me I realized I didn't want to stop smoking because I knew if I stopped, I wouldn't, and it wasn't like it was kind of a subconscious part of me.
Yeah.
But I knew if I stopped, I wouldn't have something to blame my inefficiency on, or I just wouldn't have something to blame. It's like, it gave me something to blame. Does that make any sense?
It does, because everything we do, even things that seem stupid or derogatory, we do to meet some needs. There's only 6 needs people have. We have a need for comfort or certainty. We have a need for variety. We have a need to feel significant, unique, special, important. Everybody has that need. We have a need to feel connection and love. We have a need to grow. We have a need to contribute beyond ourselves.
It was just comfort, I think.
Yeah. It's the comfort and the certainty of what you know. But there is a fear that everybody has, 2 fears. All human beings at some moment feel that they're not enough. And to feel like you're not enough for someone whose love you crave makes a person crazy. And
wait, for someone who's what? I didn't hear that right.
Somebody whose love you crave. I think the average person, you don't care, but if it's somebody whose love you really want.
Oh, yeah.
So if you feel like you're not enough, then you feel like you won't be loved. To be worthless and unloved is like psychological death. So people drug themselves, eat, they do anything not to feel that. Well, what are your choices on changing that? Well, you could take on a new project, build a podcast, build a business, do something, but you have to take risks to do that. And risks, you could look like a failure. You could fail, which might look like you're worthless, might look like you're not worthy of love. So subconsciously, we come up with these ways to adapt. So smoking a cigarette comforts you because when you take that big, slow breath in and blow it out nice and slow, it changes the tempo in your body completely. You go from stress to comfort.
Wild West.
You can do that same shit without the cigarette.
Yeah.
But then you're addicted and it becomes the go-to. Some people stop smoking and then they overeat because overeating puts all the blood in your stomach and you start to breathe slowly again and feel things and you let go. So you can get certainty and comfort by those ways, or you can do it by working out and developing this sense of strength that makes you certain, or you can do the same thing day after day. There's so many ways. There's positive ways and negative ways, but we also need uncertainty. We need variety. If every day you know what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, you get bored out of your mind.
Oh, yeah.
But if you have so much variety, you don't know what's going to happen, people freak out. So these needs bounce up against each other.
So you believe this, you know this, you've done it so many times that is the key. That's the thing. It's like you excluded out these other things of like, this is fool's gold, this is fool's gold, this is fool's gold.
Well, you're putting fool's gold.
Right.
That's how you get to the good stuff.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But if you give up because something's bullshit, most of it's bullshit. But then you find those gems that really work. And when you find the gems work, then you can use them for the rest of your life. And then you share them with other people because you can see it really works.
Yeah.
And then, then you get the science behind it. But in the past, I've just got people the results. That is the science, right? But it's nice now to have science justifying or being able to show people how powerful it is, how effective it is. But, it was in the Journal of Psychiatry last year. And all the people thought this is going to spread like crazy. Not one phone call because they're still selling SSRIs, right? So the same people come to me, they've always come to me, but nobody from the psychological community on major scale. They just a big conference and share the results again, and people are fascinated. And came up, asked questions.
But there's too much money in the.
And it's just even money. It's just habits. This is how they do their business. It's a business, right? For those people, you can stack the negative and be overwhelmed, or you can stack the positive and feel this tremendous sense of momentum. And that's the other secret. Momentum. You're getting momentum right now, it sounds like. Momentum is like you ever watched a team and they're getting their butt kicked, and then somebody suddenly does something magical. They steal the ball, they do something, and boom, it creates a spark, and then the other team takes over, right? Momentum shifts everything. And momentum comes by doing the right thing over and over, and after a while, it becomes what you expect to do. But when you look at the people that are the best of the best, they have certainty. If you see Steph Curry, he's with the Warriors, he makes those three-point shots from almost half court, right? He releases the ball. He doesn't wait to go through. He turns around and just like he already knows it's in. Like, how does he do that? Well, he's a genius. Well, true, but where did the genius come from? He's been shooting 500 shots a day, every single day, 7 days a week for his entire adult life and most of his teens. Now think about that. He's been in the NBA 15 years. He's the greatest three-point shooter in the history of the world. He made 3,360-something shots now, three-point shots. No one even close. Watch this. 500 shots a day, 14,000 shots a month. That's 168,000 shots a year. That's over 15 years, just his professional career.
A lot.
2.52 million shots he's taken in practice so that he can make 3,300 and be the greatest in history. So people get rewarded in public for what they practice in private.
Woo. That is the quote of the day, man. People get praised in public for what they practice in private. That is 100% so correct. And even how he started with the whole building momentum, right? You build momentum, you keep the momentum going, and one day you will actually be noticed for the work that you do, but don't worry about getting noticed over here. Keep doing the work because the work needs to be done so that you can get here, but don't even worry about it, right? I doubt Steph Curry is now even thinking about any more rings. He's like, this is what I do, right? Like, basketball is what I do. If I get the rings, it just comes with the territory, but I am who I am. I'm the greatest because I am, right? And so I love how he even brings up the taking 3 whatever million or trillion or whatever was shots to make the 30,000, 300,000, right? Like, you're going to have misses, right? Even Jordan said this, like, maybe I made it all look too easy, because it's not. And that's the thing about hard work. It goes unseen and it's hard, but those who actually put in the work will reap the benefits of the reward that come with hard work. At the end of the day, it all depends on how you view yourself. And you also need to take on the identity of the person that you want to be. Changes to last, it has to become your identity. And this is so true when it comes to making long and lasting impacts in your life. It's going to be hard, and there's going to be so many people, like I know growing up and when I started taking this change of life serious, there's so many other voices and actual friends and family of mine just making fun of me for the decisions I was making and the things that I was learning and the steps that I was taking and wanting to move from Brownsville. But at the end of the day, I had to take on that identity, so that when people were saying, you're not that person and you're not going to do this and you're this and you're that, I had to go back and say, no, that is who I am, right? Like, I've even talked about it on this channel, like becoming a photographer and a videographer. It had to take me to actually look at myself and say, no, this is really what you are. So begin to act like it and develop the skills even better to be that thing. So take on that identity. Don't let other voices, don't let other people, don't let even yourself, right? Your old past self drag you down. Whoever you're becoming, whatever you're developing, if it's a better person than you were yesterday, keep moving forward and keep fighting the battle. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll catch y'all on the next episode. And until next time, peace out.